Good Friday afternoon, and welcome back to Commentator's Corner. Tyler Reedy and Brendan Preisman with you once again. And Brendan, guess what? It's afternoon. We're not doing it at 8 in the morning anymore.
No, we're not.
Cross-country season is over. We've got a lot more flexibility to our schedule, so you can expect some episodes in the morning, some in the afternoon. Maybe we'll have the option to do a couple in a week now that schedules are more opened up, but should be fun. Cross-country's done for us, but for everybody else, at least the varsity guys, they've got districts coming up next week. Tennis team just won the Metro tournament. They've got state coming up next week as well. And then football team tonight, 7 p.m. down in Lincoln, taking on the Rockets of Lincoln Northeast, your fourth-ranked Junior Jays on the road with just 3 games left in the regular season.
And they've started to look really, really good. They've definitely upped their game in these past couple of weeks. Marty Brown, 122 carries, 738 yards, 9 touchdowns on the year. Jack Stessman, 36 carries, 244 yards, 5 touchdowns, 28th in Class A rushing yards, despite not being the lead back. He's pretty good at that. The passing offense has woken up. 6 interceptions already on the year for the Junior Jays defense, 2 apiece from John Pargo, Asher Anderson. Great front 7 as well. Guys like Michael Barrett, Ryan Carney, Sam Sledge get a lot of tackles for loss. And then they're going up against a Lincoln Northeast team that really is not great. They've got 2 wins on the year, but only one of them was really impressive. They did have a nice comeback win against Lincoln North Star, 26-24. Their quarterback did not complete a pass in that game, but he did run 26 times for 188 yards and 2 scores. That's their quarterback. Dylan Gray, he's definitely more of a running threat. He's got 53 carries for 263 yards, only 43 pass attempts, so that shows you what this team's built around. Team's second leading rusher is their sophomore running back, Connor Alley, 54 carries for 229 yards. So they are solid, but in their first game of the year, they were held to 1 total rushing yard, and this game looks a little similar, especially with that dominating defensive Prep.
And Prep comes in having won another solid game last week in their homecoming game against North Platte. Took down the Bulldogs 42-24 last Friday night, and it was the second time this season that Jack Stessman and Marty Brown, the 2 running backs you mentioned a couple moments ago, it's the second time this year that they combined for 4 or more rushing touchdowns. Stessman ran for 3 of them, Brown ran for 2 more, so Prep running game is in full force. We've seen some games where Shamar Brown's the guy. Obviously, he had the 250-yard performance against Millard West, but other times they can provide a really nice 1-2 punch behind an offensive line that's young but developing and growing into this system really well. So should be a big night on offense, you would figure, for the Junior Jays.
Yeah, you definitely would. And moving to the other sports as well, you mentioned tennis. Zach Quo, undefeated currently in singles play, led them to the district's win just yesterday. And Nathan and Sean Ramachandran, 2 National Merit Scholars, also getting it done on the tennis court as well, winning that doubles match, so congratulations to tennis. And then for cross-country, couple of medalists in the varsity race. Senior John Burns and sophomore Dennis Chapman did very well. But what was really cool about that meet at Walnut Creek yesterday was the course record was set, a 15:31, an absolute blistering time on a course that, as we both can tell you from experience, is not very kind to runners.
No. Gabe Heinrichs of Elkhorn South, congratulations to him. Undefeated on the year and setting the course record. 15:31 was the time. That's unbelievable to do in Walnut Creek. So getting into the nitty-gritty of state championship season, football, cross-country tennis. Should be fun to keep track of. It all starts next week with districts and then state tennis as well. So we'll get into the next level, college football.
Oh, you're going to love to talk about this.
Yeah, in full swing. I'll talk about last week, and last week was not particularly enjoyable for me. Notre Dame losing to Cincinnati 24-13, but good for the Bearcats. They move up to number 5. They've got their statement win to the College Football Playoff Selection Committee, so they're in the top 5. Michigan has jumped into the top 10 with a 38-17 over Wisconsin. They're one of 3 teams in the Power 5 that has not trailed at any point this season. Georgia continues to prove that they are on a whole other level with Alabama. They beat Arkansas, a top 10 team, 37-0 at home in Athens.
And here's the thing about that game. Arkansas is still probably, at worst, a top 15 team.
Oh, yeah.
It's just like, as we've been saying these past couple of weeks, the distance between number 2 and number 3 right now is astronomical. It's
Absolutely.
just that score's 37-0, but don't let the box score fool you. From the eye test, that game looked like it was 52 to -7.
And speaking of the gap between 2 and 3, last week's number 3 team, Oregon, was upset by Stanford, a fellow Pac-12 opponent, on the road, 31-24 in overtime. So Oregon jumps back further down to, I think, 8 or 9 in the top 10. They're still in the top 10, but no longer,
That's a tough loss.
no longer in that playoff spot. Alabama, top team in the land, rolled once again over 12th-ranked Ole Miss, 42-21 win for the Crimson Tide. Kentucky pulled an upset in the SEC over 10th-ranked Florida, 20-13. Their fans got to storm the field. Good to see Kentucky off to a nice start this year. And then Clemson has exited the top 25 after a close win over unranked Boston College. So a lot of things changing. Bama and Georgia, the top 2. But as we talked about really all year, aside from that, it's anybody's game.
And, yeah, there's a lot of chaos under them, too. Auburn comeback victory against LSU at LSU. A lot of people wondering if Ed Orgeron's going to be the next coach to go. Bo Nix had a couple of really nice plays, including that one where he ran around for about a minute and then threw a touchdown. Nebraska finally got a big win, 56-7 over Northwestern. A lot of triple option looks in that game, and it worked, so maybe a corner starting to turn for the Huskers. Oklahoma State, unbeaten right now after a 24-14 victory over number 21 Baylor. Also in the state of Texas, Mississippi State upsets Texas A&M at home, and the number 6 preseason team in the country has now fallen to unranked, and to the point where Nick Saban, who is playing them this weekend as the Alabama coach, is now describing them as a trap game. So that's how things are going in College Station. Meanwhile, in the superior Texas team, the Longhorns squeaked by TCU. It was a close game. It was a nervous game, but they've had trouble against the Horned Frogs for quite some time now. Whenever they had to play TCU, it always seems like there's going to be some problems. But Bijan Robinson, who I think should be the number 1 guy in the Heisman race right now, and that's not my bias coming through. That's like he's just actually that good. 216 yards, 2 touchdowns, ran 6 straight times on the game-winning drive. So the Horns got a big matchup coming up this week. That's how we should probably start our preview, shouldn't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of the Burnt Orange, they are involved in one of this week's biggest games, the Red River rivalry, number 6 Oklahoma and number 21 Texas. It's going to be a little bit of a different feel without Gus Johnson on the call.
No, why is he not calling it?
It's on ABC.
No!
I think they might be giving Gus the number 3 versus number 4 Iowa Penn
Give
State
him the game with offense. Are you kidding me? What's he going to do? Be like, oh, a 3rd straight tackle for loss, and it's 3rd and 13.
He's used to it. He had that Penn State-Wisconsin
But
game in week 1.
No, that's a waste of talent.
Well, he's gotten plenty of scoring in the NFL, so
that's true.
That has been good to see. But anyway, Oklahoma, Texas, Penn State, Iowa, a top 4 matchup in Iowa City. Arkansas, Ole Miss, 13 versus 17 in the SEC. 2 teams that got stomped by 1 and 2 in the rankings last week. Number 2, Georgia on the road at number 18, Auburn, trying to continue to prove that they are miles ahead of everybody except Alabama in the SEC. And then number 9, Michigan on the road under the lights in Lincoln to take on the Huskers. So Nebraska, after a dominant, and I mean dominant performance over Northwestern a week ago for their homecoming game, has a chance to really make a statement, try and pull an upset win over the Wolverines.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I got a couple of score predictions for college since the NFL predictions have gone so well. For the Red River rivalry or Red River shootout, I've got Texas 38-34. I've said this many times on this podcast. I will stand by it. I do not see what so many other people see in Spencer Rattler. I do not think he's that good. Oklahoma just last week survived a game against a pretty bad Kansas State team, 37-31, almost losing to a Nebraska team that until last week didn't look like they knew how to play football for the most part. Oklahoma is not as good as their number 6 ranking would have you believe. I've got the Horns 38-34. Arkansas, Ole Miss, I think it's actually a bit of a bounce-back game for the Razorbacks. I think that they're going to have to come out with a lot of energy if they don't want to lose all that momentum they built up earlier this year. I've got them 28-20. Georgia, Auburn was a fairly easy pick. I've got the Dogs 37-10. As you said, they're miles ahead of everybody, and I think they're going to prove that. Penn State-Iowa is going to be a fun game if you like field goals and turnovers. I've got the Hawkeyes 16-14. Michigan-Nebraska, I think it's going to be pretty close, but Michigan, I think there's just a little bit of a different vibe for them this year. It's no longer the, oh boy, we're Ohio State's little brother and we're sad now. Like, Jim Harbaugh appears to have a pretty good squad on his hands, so I think Michigan takes that one 31-21. And then in the Notre Dame-Virginia Tech game, Notre Dame heading down to Blacksburg at 6:30 on Saturday on the ACC network. The line is even, and I'm going with the Hokies, 27-24.
I can see why. I still don't understand what head coach Brian Kelly is seeing in Jack Cohn as the starter.
Here we go.
But, yeah, whatever. As long as Drew Pine is the guy by the time the North Carolina game rolls around, because I'll be going to that one at the end of October. I don't want to see Jack Cohn as the starting quarterback if it continues the way it's been.
Didn't you tell me a couple days ago that if Cohn was still the starter, you weren't going to go?
Oh, that was a joke. Was
it, though?
There's a difference between kidding around. I'm not passing up that opportunity.
Well, you might have to, because by the time that game rolls around, the Irish might have 2 or even 3 losses maybe. So,
well, good thing is we have proven in the past that we can go to Virginia Tech, and despite the whole Enter Sandman and crowd noise and all that, go in there and get a win. But that was with a much better team in 2018. We'll have to see how the 2021 squad handles it. But we'll move on to the National Football League. We've been even in our game predictions through 4 weeks, but Brendan has pulled a game ahead of me as he predicted last night's Seahawks-Rams game correctly. He had LA, I had Seattle, so Rams winning that one. Russell Wilson going down with an injury. Brendan gets a game on me, but looking ahead to Sunday, we got our first London game of 2021 as the New York Jets take on the Atlanta Falcons in an interconference battle, and Falcons, I think the offense is starting to come around just a little bit. Matt Ryan had his best game of the season last week against Washington. And I know you might want to jump on the Jets hype train a little bit after the win over Tennessee, but Tennessee is about as unpredictable as it gets. So I've got Atlanta 24-17 in London.
Yeah, I agree with you that Tennessee is pretty unpredictable, but you have neglected to consider the fact that Atlanta has almost no pass rush. They actually lost to Washington last week. That game was a loss. It was a close loss, but I think they do so again. I think that without the pass rush that he's been used to these past couple of weeks, Zach Wilson is no longer going to be throwing the ball exclusively to the other team. I've got the Jets 21-17.
Green Bay at Cincinnati. Both offenses. Bengals offense looks to be quite legit. Green Bay, after the disastrous performance in Jacksonville against the Saints to start the year, their offense has come around, but Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers on the road. I mean, how can you not trust him? 27-24 Packers.
Yep, 35-27 Packers. Bengals are good, but I think they're a year away from true contention with Joe Burrow, especially if he can stay healthy. And Rodgers and the Packers. It might be his last year there, but darn if he's not going to make it a good one. So, Packers 35-27.
Vikings hosting the Detroit Lions in an NFC North clash, and last year, we saw Dalvin Cook run for over 200 yards in this matchup against Detroit, and I think we'll see fairly similar performance from the offense as a whole. Kirk Cousins will have another solid game, building on his pretty strong start to the season, and then Dalvin Cook should have a good one on the ground as well. Vikings win it 30-17.
Yeah, I've got the Vikings there. Slightly lower scoring, but I think they need a win, and I think that the Lions for years and years have been the team that you play in the NFC North when you need a win. I think they're that team again this year. Vikings 24-13.
Pittsburgh hosting Denver. I've been saying that the winner of this game hinges on who starts the game at quarterback for Denver, and as of right now, it looks like Teddy Bridgewater is going to have medical clearance following the concussion he suffered last Sunday against the Ravens, so with him the starter, I've got Denver winning it 24-20 over Pittsburgh.
Well, I have the exact same score, and I had it before Bridgewater was announced, I'll have you know. I don't think this game comes down to who the Broncos starter is. I think it comes down to who the Steelers starter is. If you've been watching any football highlights at all, you know that the Steelers have not had many, and that is because they are relying on a past his prime, Ben Roethlisberger at quarterback. He got intercepted on a shovel pass a couple weeks ago, if you're wondering how he's doing. And that's a big issue with the NFL sometimes. It's like yes, this old quarterback is no longer good, but also he's a multi-time Super Bowl champion with us, and he's a franchise icon. So I think the Steelers' season and playoff hopes are going to come down to if and when they decide to switch up the starter, because Roethlisberger is clearly not the guy.
Tampa Bay hosting Miami in a battle of the Sunshine State, and difference in this game, Buccaneers have a legitimate top-flight offense. Miami does not. 31-17 Bucks.
35-17 Bucks. You neglected to mention that the Dolphins also lost to the Colts.
Well, that too.
The Colts are bad. The Buccaneers are not bad. So, yeah, Buccaneers roll in that one probably.
Yep, nice and easy on that one. New Orleans going on the road to Washington. Saints taking on the football team, and I think the Saints going to have a solid defensive performance. I think Taylor Heineke will come back to earth a little bit after the big game against Atlanta. Heineke's putting up good numbers, but a lot of those throws are pretty high-risk, high-reward type, and I think a better Saints defense is going to cost him a little bit, and I've got New Orleans winning at 24-17.
Boy, a high-risk, high-reward quarterback. I wonder who that sounds like. Oh, wait, the Saints quarterback. Famous Jameis himself. I think Heineke is on a pretty good hot streak right now. I don't think he's going to collapse, like you said. I don't think he's going to continue it to this level, but I think he's going to do enough to get the football team to win. And I think the football team's going to win it 27-24.
Okay, this is another one that could go either way. Carolina hosting Philadelphia. As Christian McCaffrey, it looked like for a couple days he was going to be back, but just today he was downgraded to doubtful, much to my displeasure as a fantasy owner of him in 2 leagues. But I still think Sam Darnold, he proved last week against Dallas that he can still play at a high level. 4 total touchdowns, 2 through the air, 2 on the ground against the Cowboys last week, and I think he's going to be able to outplay Jalen Hurts. I think Carolina's defense exceeds that of Philadelphia, and it's going to be 26-21 Panthers.
I've got 24-14 Carolina. Originally, I did have McCaffrey as the difference in that game. But really, when I look at it, the Eagles' offense just does not inspire confidence. I like Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith. I want them both to succeed. I really admired them both in college. I really admire what they've both done so far in their young professional careers. But they just don't have it, and right now it looks like Sam Darnold at the very least has some offensive consistency. I think that's going to be enough to get Carolina the win, 24-14.
Titans at Jaguars in Jacksonville, and Jacksonville has beaten Tennessee once in that AFC matchup since the end of the 2016 season, September 19th, 2019, the only time Jacksonville has beaten Tennessee in the last 4 years. And due in large part to Derrick Henry, who I think is going to have a big day. He loves facing off against his fellow AFC South teams, and I think he's going to have a big day. I think Tennessee will bounce back pretty well offensively after the letdown against the Jets, and they'll win it 31-20.
I agree. I think it's going to be down to Derrick Henry, and I don't quite think it's going to be that close. I've got Titans 34-21, and this is not really a prediction. This is more of a begging, like, please have Derrick Henry do well, because I have him in a fantasy league where I was heavily reliant on the Rams players, and as we saw last night, the Rams didn't do too well, so please get like 250 yards and 3 touchdowns. Thank you.
Patriots at Texans. Houston continuing to really struggle with Davis Mills at quarterback. Got shut out by the Bills a couple weeks ago, and now here they are having to go up against Bill Belichick, who nearly beat Tom Brady last week, and I think New England will continue the ride of solid momentum. They'll go down to Houston and get a 23-17 win.
I agree. It's not going to be too close. Uh-oh. Water bottle fell. This is a football game. I would not recommend watching it. I certainly will not be unless I have to. 27-10 Patriots.
Yeah, I've got the Patriots defense in one of my leagues, so
I'll
be slightly invested.
You're going to be fine.
Bears at Raiders. Vegas got off to the 3-0 start, but then went on the road to L.A. Chargers Monday Night Football, and offense got shut down quite substantially by that Chargers defense, and I think they'll have a solid bounce back. Chicago's defense has struggled at times this season, and I think Vegas will be able to throw the ball around pretty well, and they'll get 27-17 win. Justin Fields will have a decent day, somewhere in between his performance against Detroit and debut against Cleveland.
Yeah, Justin Fields is pretty good, I think, but Derek Carr and the Raiders are just better, especially right now. Raiders, I think, are a legitimate AFC sleeper who every contender in the AFC should watch out for, especially the Chiefs, who we'll get to a bit later. But I've got the Raiders 34-17.
Browns and Chargers. This one is honestly a coin flip for me. It comes down to whether or not Cleveland can control the game with the run like they did last week at Minnesota. I think they will be able to for a while, but Justin Herbert looks like he has complete control of that Chargers offense. It just looks like a well-oiled machine right now down there at SoFi Stadium, and I think it'll continue to roll. Chargers will pull out a close victory 27-24.
Oh, you changed it. I thought you had the Browns at first.
I did. I mulled over it a little bit throughout the day and came to the conclusion that the Chargers will win it.
I agree. They don't look cursed anymore. They don't look cursed. So, especially since it's a home game, I've got them 28-24.
Cowboys-Giants NFC East matchup. Dallas has emerged as one of the more impressive teams in all of football. Certainly one of the best on the offensive side of things. And I think the Giants, despite their overtime win and Saquon Barkley's reemergence last week in New Orleans, I think Dallas will just continue to roll 34-17 with a lot of guys getting touchdowns.
Yeah, the Cowboys are very good and the Giants are very not. 31-20 Dallas, and at this point it's really their division to lose unless they start falling all over themselves. Ooh, this might change your prediction for the next game a bit. 49ers-Cardinals. Schefter just announced it. Jimmy Garoppolo is officially out Sunday versus the Cardinals. Trey Lance will make his first NFL start. Does that change anything for you?
Yeah, I think it makes the game closer. You're going to have Kyler Murray and Trey Lance going head-to-head in that Cardinals-49ers game, and Lance has shown to be a little bit boom or bust just in terms of hitting big plays and finding the end zone on big scoring plays. He showed it last week against Seattle, going for 156 yards and 2 touchdowns, and I think he's going to keep it close. I think Kyler and Trey Lance are going to produce a pretty solid shootout, but Arizona 31, San Francisco 27, but watch out. 49ers could be on the come-up if Trey Lance has a solid debut.
Yeah, I've got 31-21 Cardinals. I think Kyler Murray's got a real shot at the MVP this year, and I think he continues to prove it against San Francisco.
Sunday night, most anticipated game of the week, Kansas City hosting Buffalo. Chiefs trying to get off the schneid once and for all after a 2-2 start. Their defense has been horrific at best. They beat the Eagles 42-30 last week. Needed Tyreek Hill to do just about everything in his power to provide enough offense to beat Philadelphia. But Buffalo coming to town, I think the Chiefs, 4 weeks into the season now, the defense has not been good. I think it's about time for a wake-up call, and I think they're going to really jolt things into form and beat Buffalo 31-24 on Sunday night.
I got it slightly closer than that. I think there's going to be more offense. The Chiefs are incredibly talented. Bills are as well. And as you mentioned, the Chiefs' defense, atrocious, might be giving them a little too much credit so far this year. They are not looking great. They're definitely going to have to get that fixed before the playoffs roll around. But I think this game, at this point in the year, in Arrowhead, they get just enough to push it over the edge. 34-31 Kansas City.
And the other thing I think the Chiefs have learned, teams are really trying to take away the deep ball and the passing threat downfield with guys like Kelsey and Hill. They're learning they can run the ball with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who has had back-to-back solid performances, went for 100 yards against the Chargers, had another good one last week against the Eagles. So we'll see how two-dimensional that Chiefs offense is, try and keep up with Buffalo, who's red hot. And then Monday night, another solid AFC matchup, Baltimore hosting Indianapolis. Ravens have been, as advertised to start the season, playing good football. Indianapolis has struggled mightily, finally got their first win of the year in Miami last week, but they won't get their second, 24-13 Baltimore.
Yeah, don't look now, but Lamar Jackson is good again. I've got 31-14 Baltimore.
So that's it, NFL Week 5. I'll give a quick recap of what's going on in Major League Baseball. What's going on is that the playoffs have started. Wild card round Tuesday and Wednesday night. On the American League side, the Red Sox took down the Yankees 6-2 as Garrett Cole, the $300 million man, gave up 3 earned runs in just 2 innings pitched. Not what the Yankee fans want out of him, but the bigger problem was certainly the offense. New York will have to address things in the offseason as they've just been treading water for the last several seasons. Boston's rebuild completely caught up to them. They won the World Series in 2018, went through a complete rebuild, and here they are beating the Yankees again in 21. National League wild card, Dodgers and Cardinals played a very fun game on Wednesday night with LA winning it 3-1 on a 2-run walk-off home run by Chris Taylor. So that propels them into the NLDS. They'll be taking on the San Francisco Giants, two best teams in baseball throughout the whole season, going head-to-head. Tonight is Game 1, Walker Buehler and Logan Webb on the mound. And then on the other side, Atlanta and Milwaukee, Charlie Morton and Corbin Burns towing the slab in that one. ALDS, both the home teams won yesterday. Houston got the win over the Chicago White Sox 6-1, and then the Tampa Bay Rays defeated the Boston Red Sox 5-0 as Randy Arozarena, you might remember him, last year's playoff standout, hitting home run after home run. He stole home in last night's Game 1. Both of those Game 2s are today, Boston and Tampa Bay, Chicago and Houston. And then finally, Brendan, one last segment from you.
Yep. What is happening? Well, Tyler brought up the baseball, which if you're a regular listener to this podcast, you know I don't have a lot to contribute to. I do have something to contribute to this, not for the what is happening, but just real quick. Currently, White Sox and Astros playing right now. It is 3:31 Central for us, and it is 4-4 right now in the bottom of the fifth. One out, but the Astros have men on first and second. So once we're done, you're probably going to check that out.
Yeah.
But anyway, the what is happening is another NBA-centric thing. Speaking of the NBA, the season starts October 19th, a little under 2 weeks. We will have an NBA preview for you next week if Tyler lets me get it on the podcast.
Oh, I will.
So get ready for maybe 2 or even 3 podcasts next week if it comes to that. But this is about another Eastern Conference star who may not be able to play for his team. Kyrie Irving of the Brooklyn Nets is still, as of this point, refusing to get vaccinated. He is ineligible to play in any games in New York or Los Angeles or Toronto as well. So a guaranteed 40-plus games missed for Irving this year unless he gets vaccinated. And he can't really even practice with the team because they practice in indoor facilities, and without the vaccine, he's not really allowed in indoor facilities in group settings. So a lot of people are wondering, what are they going to do with him? Are they going to just have him play in away games? Could that work? Could a coach set up a game plan to have that work? Are they going to trade him? Remember the Ben Simmons what is happening from a couple of weeks ago. Irving is a name that has been brought up a lot recently in those trade rumors. It's basically a white elephant swap. No team really wants to touch either of these guys at this point, but it could be something. And the real question is, what does this do to the Nets' title chances? A lot of people think that they were maybe a Kevin Durant toenail away from winning the title. They were in a tight Game 7 with the Milwaukee Bucks last year. Durant hit what we thought could have been a game-winning 3. It turned out his toe was on the line. Game went to overtime, and the Bucks beat a very fatigued Nets team. But that team was built to win a title. Nothing less than that. So without Kyrie Irving, can Kevin Durant and James Harden carry the team alone? That's very interesting for the for the NBA title race, and it's gotten to the point where people are wondering, how is this going to affect Irving's career as a whole? Because he is still at his peak, probably a top 4 or 5 point guard in the NBA right now, and he may have suggested that if he's traded, he's going to retire. So nobody knows where that's going to go. We do know, though, that he definitely won't be able to play in Toronto. Canada's Quarantine Act allows unvaccinated players to leave their hotels only for official team activities. If players break those protocols in Canada, they could be fined up to $750,000 and even face prison time.
Goodness gracious.
So this is getting kind of crazy. There was another NBA player who was fairly vocal in his opposition to the vaccine, Andrew Wiggins, who has since gotten it. He plays for the Golden State Warriors and would also not have been allowed to play. So the NBA season looking like it's going to be very interesting. A lot of fun, but there's also that vaccine hanging over everything. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that Kyrie Irving situation.
Yep, we're about ready for hockey season as well. Obviously, no drama, no big storylines quite like that at the moment. We'll have to see how it develops. But yeah, NBA, NHL about ready to go, and we'll certainly have full in-depth previews on those. We'll have to try and find a way to fit it in. We're going to have a couple weeks here where all 4 sports are going on at the same time. So we'll have to figure out a way to manage that, but We'll figure it out. We always do.
I guess we will.
So that'll do it for this week's episode. Prep taking on Lincoln Northeast tonight on the football field at 7 p.m. I will be live tweeting it. Brendan will be down there with me as well. We're carpooling down to Seacrest Field together to watch the Junior Jays, so it should be a fun evening.
I'll bring some gummy cola.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
I like that. That's yeah, you know what I like.
That's what I like, actually. I'm going to have most of it, but,
okay.
Is what it is.
Well, that'll do it for this week's episode. Everybody, enjoy your weekend. Get outside if you can. Weather looks to be beautiful this week, going into next as well. Brendan, any final notes before we sign off?
For all the prep students who listen to us, first of all, thank you. Second of all, it's homecoming week, so stay safe, stay smart, have a great homecoming. I'm going to be there. You're not, but you got grandparents in town, so you got an excuse. If you're not going to go to homecoming, the least you could do is watch some football and tell me how correct I was in my predictions. But thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you all next week, maybe once, maybe twice, but we'll let you know as that develops.
All right, Tyler Reedy, Brendan Prizeman signing off. Have a good weekend, everybody. See you next week.